So anyway, this is Detroit Become Human. This is the hopefully going to be the first in a long line of story-driven games that I'm actually going to play on here for you guys. That sort of style of gaming, being storyline-driven, will give me more of a chance to actually sort of show my real personality. I mean, some of it comes through a little bit every now and then, but you know, you'll get some real, proper, true reactions from me. I mean, we've got a couple of bits and pieces in there throughout the rest of the stuff we've had so far. You know, you get little flashes, little glimpses of my personality every now and then. You have it or not. I've got it already. Absolutely got it. It's on the download right now. So we're ready to rock and roll, hopefully either tomorrow or we're just going to kick off on Thursday, whichever one I've got more time to do. I really want to push out these games that are more storyline driven, so that way I can have some fun. I can, you know, react, and you guys can see me react to a lot of things. We've got a lot of horror sort of based games. You're going to see me a few jump scares and whatnot. It's going to be quite interesting, actually. Anywho, let's get on with it. Detroit Become Human before you buy.
And we're back with another episode of Before You Buy, that show where we give you some straight up gameplay and our first impressions of the latest games releasing. And as usual, it's me, Jake Baldino, and today we're talking about Detroit Become Human. This is the next game from Quantic Dream, another game written and directed by
This is the one based with
David
AIs,
Cage,
isn't
who
it?
was behind,
Like
Beyond Two Souls,
AI technology
Heavy
and
Rain,
robots.
and one of my favorites, Indigo Prophecy /
Androids,
Fahrenheit.
I suppose.
Now, a newcomer might not know this, so I think it's worth saying that these games, and especially Detroit, are playable stories. They feel like movies, but they're really not quite as good in some aspects, like writing. But they do have fan bases,
AI
and
Become Human.
frankly, I'm in that fan base. I think these games are fun. I like Quantic Dream's games, and I was looking forward to this one.
Oh, I mean, look, just off this alone, sorry, probably a little bit of a blurry freeze frame like that. AI Become Human, obviously, you know, this world is based around robots, and think iRobot, I suppose. But I really like this whole thing. I mean, the digital, the hologram of the wait for green to change. So, you know, you can sort of see it through their eyes. I'm already really intrigued. I mean, you can sort of see them over here in the background, all standing in a line, very robotic and things like that. But it does sort of seem like there may be some free will going on here.
To me personally, of course, it seems like Detroit Become Human is pretty much what you come to expect from Quantic Dreams. I don't really think it'll win over any new fans. Look, if something about Heavy Rain bothered you, maybe you thought it was boring or not fun,
I love
or
me
you
some
couldn't
Heavy
get
Rain,
past some
man.
of the awkward dialogue. Detroit doesn't fix all of this stuff, but having said that, I do think it's enjoyable, and I think it might actually be one of the better games they've made overall. And also keep in mind, I won't spoil anything, and the gameplay footage here is mostly just early areas of the game. Now, the game takes place, obviously, in Detroit in the near future of 2038, where things feel still somewhat familiar, except society is filled with these lifelike androids. These androids can be owned by humans.
It does sort of look already very familiar. I played a lot of Heavy Rain. I really, really enjoyed that story-based, you know, game. I mean, again, that one sort of had a little bit of a time limit on it. Which I'm not really all about. I mean, I like to take my time with it, especially these sort of story-driven games and things like that. But I don't know. This looks freaking good. This looks really good.
Are forced to follow orders and basically just kind of work as slaves. Some are housekeepers, others help the disabled or work as garbage collectors or any other job.
Okay.
And there is tension brewing because of that. The convenience is great, but people are getting frustrated as more and more of them lose their jobs to autonomous androids. This, coupled with the fact that there is a low-key revolution brewing as some androids are going haywire and are becoming what they call deviant, which is them essentially breaking through their programming and becoming free thinking and feeling. So basically, it's a tense world. It's a powder keg. It's a fairly well-realized one that doesn't go too far to develop itself into a full sci-fi world. It tries to adhere to...
Alright, so I'm quite intrigued already. I mean, it does... With Heavy Rain, it sort of, you know, it was sort of threw you off a little bit. I mean, it's very... Again, it's very robotic. A lot of these story-driven games are very robotic. But now in a scenario like this, where you go, okay, well, you got your optional tasks. But, I mean, you can imagine that she has a... get ready to mop the floor. You can understand that they've got this list in there. I mean, you could almost imagine that this android here has that list there. It's really, really freaking good.
The normal rules while giving you little bits here and there, like magazines and news stories and environmental clues.
Heavy Rain was definitely underrated.
Problems, a brewing war with Russia, and all these other little cool things that are worth looking into. It's not as hardcore sci-fi as maybe even the trailers that are marketing suggests.
I wish I could do that.
More of a character-based story. But speaking of characters, this is the main focus here. You bounce around between three of them. There's Kara.
You have to do the small tasks.
Marcus, who goes from kind of like an assistant to an artist to a freedom fighter. And
Oh god, you
Connor,
literally
he's like a new
do.
prototype homicide detective model, and his arc is definitely my favorite. You can play through scenes via the different characters in 3 separate arcs that
So it plays on
sometimes
controller.
converge.
Oh,
And
I
you
will
can
be
do
playing it on
various
controller,
things as
man.
the characters,
Absolutely.
from menial tasks like cleaning to looking for clues, climbing stuff, talking to people, making decisions that are very important. And of course, there are quick time event action sequences that require quick button presses and stuff. It's all pretty standard
There
by
he is.
now, and
I've seen
it
this
does
dude.
little to feel like it's adding any new mechanics. And sometimes you'll find yourself struggling with the camera joystick also being the interact button, and the small motion controls needed not really going as smoothly as expected.
Well, look, I mean, again, that was one of the issues that I did have with some of the Heavy Rain stuff, where the controls were quite clunky. I mean, I know you mentioned that just before, but they were kind of clunky. It was a little bit, erratic, especially during the more, intense sort of scenes, I suppose, where you had to be, press the button on a certain amount of time before something else happens. Otherwise, all that sort of stuff will happen. And it did feel sort of clunky, I suppose. I really hope they have ironed at least a few of those sort of issues out. But again, I mean, if the story's good enough, I don't mind replaying a scene or two just in case I did the wrong thing. You know what I mean? Oh.
I also wish you could turn off the controller motion stuff, but alas, I guess it's their thing. I'm not a fan of that, but I do like that the stakes are high in this game. The experience is going to be fairly different for every player because even smaller stuff has multiple paths that all lead to some impressively big branching timeline trees that just show how many different outcomes there are. Certain main characters can die at certain points and cut some stories a bit shorter. Character relationships will change, all that. It'll keep you engaged, I think, if you're into it. It did for me.
All I'm hearing is content, boys. Many different endings, many different ways to do things. Yeah, that's all just 3 hours on Twitch, eh?
Some character dialogue is kind of cheesy or goofy. Nothing as cringe as Jason, but, some of the cringe is definitely still there for Heavy Rain times. But then you have other real actors like Lance Henriksen of Aliens fame or Clancy Brown of, Highlander and Mr. Krabs fame that are captured and acted perfectly in this game, and it's a total damn treat to watch them when they are on screen. I loved it as a movie fan. I will say one thing I did not enjoy was the way the stories are segmented. I just feel like the previous games flowed more seamlessly. Here, completing sections wraps it up, and you get a whole tree showing all the possibilities you unlocked along the way, and how many others are still.
Actually, I don't mind this. Now, see, I know he sort of put that up as a negative, in a way, I suppose, as a negative. But I mean, for this, like this sort of style here, with branching paths and then a roadmap afterwards of the branching paths, I reckon it's absolutely bloody brilliant because it shows how many options you've got. If you want to go back and you really enjoyed that, or you want to, you end up on a really, really short path, you go, all right, well, let's replay that entire section there because, there's obviously a lot more to that story and we can move on from there. You can sort of pick and choose the optimal sort of outcome you want. And then obviously, you can go back and change bits and pieces to see other storylines extended. I really like this aspect. Again, the more visual cues, the more sort of information that I can get, the more of a informed decision I can make, I suppose, as to how I want to play the game. I love it. It's brilliant.
Through for different experiences. Finding all the different
quality
ways
of life
the story
changes.
goes down earns you points, which then you can spend on extras to view from the main menu, like art and character models and stuff. Look, I really, really like that the game is ambitious enough and has so many outcomes that it encourages replayability, but I wasn't a big fan of every 10 or 20 minute section feeling like it formally ended, faded to black, and then I get a completion screen and then a load time until the next section. In terms of flow and pacing, it felt like a detractor, especially compared to previous games by the team.
Well, look, again, see, I can see that I can see what he means by that could be a negative. I can see that, those breaks and stuff like that. But I think that works even better for streaming because then I can literally pause it at that point and talk about what we did, whether we want to go back, whether we want to play it again, whether we achieve what we wanted to achieve, or how I felt on the situation, or how I felt on that sort of chapter, and can really segment it, I suppose, to break it up into more sizable chunks for people who are just joining in as well. I mean, I think the flow of it works a lot better for streaming, even YouTube and stuff like that, I suppose. Well, I can understand that if you're sitting there playing the game by yourself, and you want the immersion and you're sort of constantly being drawn out of it, that's sort of what I felt with like the Assassin's Creed series, when you sort of get pulled in and out, and it's like, oh, just let me kill some Crusaders. Like, come on, that's all I want to do is jump off some real tall buildings and kill some shit.
Which just seem like they flowed a bit more organically. Now, look, that's a small complaint, but it's something I picked up on, and it bothered me a little. Otherwise, though, like I said, the
Gotta go
story
hit the gym.
is
See you later.
engaging.
All right, Panda. Take care, my man. Thank you very much.
It's a story filled with some cliches and lots of on-the-nose allegories for race and freedom that just almost feel kind of awkwardly obvious, and a lot of it is going to be stuff you've seen before in other games and movies and stuff. But despite that, I think it still might hold your interest, and you'll find yourself just wanting to play through it. It worked for me. There are moments where people do some really heinous stuff. There's tense conversations, good chase and action scenes, and it all feels different enough to keep the pace going.
Jesus, all right.
Now, call me a sucker, but part of the journey for me was the visuals themselves. This is where the developers have really been spending their time. Graphically, the game looks pretty damn great with realistic character models and animations.
Oh, it
but
does
really,
look a lot
I
better
want to
than
emphasize
Heavy
Detroit
Rain.
hits a new level of like actual cinematography. The in-game camera and scenes are expertly framed and lit, and there are moments where the visuals kind of make me feel like I'm watching something like Blade Runner 2040.
All right, I'm going to pause too many more times here, but I just want to touch on one sort of comparison that I had. If you guys have ever played, what was it? It's a Rockstar game. Yeah, LA Noire. That's the one. There, that game. Oh my god. That's sort of what really drove this whole storyline-based games for me. I really love the cinematography in it. I love, LA Noire. It's so good. That was one of my favorite games for a very, very long time on the PS3. So I mean, obviously, you can sort of draw some comparisons to this, where it's slower paced, but it's it's very intense. It's very detective, mystery sort of movie-esque, I suppose. And I think that's what really, really drew me in, and that's why I really enjoy these sort of games. I don't really play them a lot of the time because I don't really have time to sit down and just go through a massive long storyline. And I do like a real challenge and things like that. If I'm going to sit down and watch a really intense movie, I mean, the cinematography and all that sort of stuff in modern, let's say Marvel, modern Disney, anything like that. You sort of sit down and want to watch one of those. But with this, it's so open. You get so many different options. It's so personalized. And things like LA Noire really sort of drummed that home for me and just made me really intrigued with the story. It's like a mystery, but it's a puzzle at the same time, but playing a movie. So, I mean, I'm really, really keen now that I've actually got an outlet to try and do some more of this sort of stuff, because these are the sort of games I've always wanted to play, but just have never sort of found a scenario or a situation to put myself in where they are really appropriate for what I want to do.
49 or some other movie that Roger Deakins did cinematography for. I was taking lots of screenshots during my playthrough and lots of just moving the camera around and just kind of enjoying the way everything looks. It might not be for everybody, and I'm always the type of person that say that graphics aren't everything. It's really about the gameplay, but here it's just a treat to look at. I also didn't experience any technical difficulties or massive frame drops on my PS4 Pro. Environments are surprisingly big in detail too, and really worth exploring to, like I said earlier,
even the
get
particle
more
effects,
of those little story details if you want them. Overall, the game is a fun playthrough. It does more than previous games to really incentivize multiple playthroughs, and that works because the game should take you anywhere from 6.5 to 10 hours, depending on how you play. So make sure you consider that if you're the type to contemplate like a day one purchase. I enjoyed it.
Too much explicit content. Yeah, definitely, man.
A bit cliched, yeah, but
game was pretty
it's
intense.
Fun as hell to watch and play and experience, so it's got my vote. But you know how Before You Buy goes by now. I list some pros, some cons, and some personal opinions, so now I definitely want to hear yours. I want to know how you guys are feeling on this game if you did jump in day one.
Alrighty, I mean, look, before he gives the entire review, I suppose, I can pretty much sort of gather what he's looking at there. Look, I'm really keen on this. After seeing what it looks like, what the sort of world and what the sort of environment, I'm really intrigued to see what is going on. I mean, obviously, they said that there's 3 different main characters, and you play through each different character's storyline and things like that. I'm really quite intrigued, actually, because I really believe that I'm going to have a lot of fun with this. Yeah, all in all, look, again, I reckon this is going to be freaking amazing. I'll wait till I finish the game to give an actual review of it, but I mean, hot damn, I'm pretty keen. Like, even just watching this has got me really keen to sit down and find out what the hell is going on in this world and why things have turned out the way that they are, and whether, I mean, look, is this perhaps where we're headed as the human race? You never know. But I don't know. I quite like it. I'm keen. I'm really keen.